This is a STEARsoft cloud server tutorial about data ownership. STEARsoft puts the teacher at the forefront of data responsibility. Although this might be what you would expect a database to look like for attendance data, in actual fact we take this and we put it with each teacher. So each teacher has their own set of data, their own timetable, their own student data, their own class data, and their own attendance data. In fact, this isn't stored centrally at all. The only thing that is optionally stored centrally is student data. And we'll look at the actualities of how this works in STEARsoft in a bit. But centrally, you can set up one student list, and then that pushes out to each of the student lists in the teacher accounts. So one set of data is then copied, so these are copies of the central school list, but it's a subset. It only has the students that are needed for that teacher, so only the students that are in the classes that are in the teacher's timetable and are needed for that attendance data. What this means is that you can take the data for a teacher, and it's kind of self-contained. It means if something goes wrong with it, a teacher makes a mistake and does something, they've only mucked up their own local copy. It's not affected anyone else's data. You can, within STEARsoft, individually back up a single teacher. So you can give a restore point to just a teacher's set of data. So if you're going to do something particular relating to a teacher, you can create a restore point, do some things, and then wind back just for that teacher. So it keeps things a little bit self-contained. But I think more importantly, it gives each teacher a responsibility, a designated responsibility for the data that they are looking after. Instead of everything just being put centrally and expecting it either to be looked at, well, it's too huge to be looked at by individuals or getting computers to automatically do things. And they can do some things, but some responsibility comes back to the teacher. This really comes from mimicking the traditional paper equivalent, where the teacher would have their paper register with their timetable, with their class lists, and that would be updated from a central place where they could take that information from. So that's how things work. The extra advantage as well is when you use the STEARsoft app on iOS devices, a particular teacher will just be synchronizing their little bit of subset of data and then have complete access to their data and be able to do things without access to the internet. So when they're on a school field, when they're on a school trip, when the internet goes down, they can take the register for their classes. They have their class lists, and that's kind of neat for speed of synchronizing and keeping a sort of sensible amount of data, but it's also good in a data protection sense that you're limiting the amount of data that's being kept on any individual portable device. There are also many safeguards as well that you can set up, and we can have a look at those as well. But that's another advantage. Right, let's have a look at how this actually works with STEARsoft. So here I am in the administrator area. We will, as I've shown in a previous tutorial, go to the central student list, and we can set up our central students, or the list of students here. These are just then to be plucked from for when we go into a teacher account. So if I go into demo user 2, let's log in as this teacher, then this teacher for class 9A has 4 students. So when I look at the list of the data in this teacher area, there they have the 4 students that they need to know about for the registers that they have. Okay, I talked about backups. If I go here to backups, this would create a backup just for this teacher's data. I can create a restore point, and then I can restore from that later, and it's separate to everything else. So that's the central student list, and that gets pushed out to other teachers. So if you need to make changes, you can make changes here, and then we use the propagator teachers to send those changes out to the teachers' individual lists. So another little thing down here on the data control and locks. When we went through this first time, I whizzed through. We selected the central student list, we enabled that, and that ticks some default options down here. Now some of these say that teachers are prevented from adding new student details or changing student details. That means with these options selected, they cannot change their local copies of their student lists. If changes need to be made, they have to be made centrally in the central student list and then propagated out or picked out by those teachers. It keeps things much tidier so you don't end up with different versions of student details in different teacher accounts. So that's quite a good thing to do if you're going to organise your data with a central student list. You can switch all of this off and have a completely free system where each teacher adds their own students in, their own class lists, and they could all run almost completely independently. And if they put in student IDs that matched up, STEARsoft will cleverly match things up and do some extra things for you. So again, also teachers have their own lists for house names, floor names, term dates. Again, all these things you can stop them getting out of sync, if you like, by stopping teachers changing them themselves. Have to be done centrally and then shared out to the teachers, and these are shared out in a more automatic fashion. So what does this mean in a practical sense? Well, instead of setting things up in a kind of arbitrary, I'm going to set up some classes in a central thing and then teachers will come and look at those classes, we have to set up data by going into a teacher account to set up their classes, their class lists, which students are in which classes, and creating registers and things like that. So the difference is that you need to either let the teachers create their data, or you need to go in and create the data for those teachers rather than setting up something centrally. The central bit is the central student list. That's it really. Thank you for listening.